All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg. So glad to be talking to you again on Tuesday, August 27th. And yeah, we'll try it again. Hopefully this time it'll work. I made one change. I deselected one of the audio streams I was using because I was getting duplicative audio on my recordings, not on the live stream, but on my recordings. But that was the stream where my audio is going out. So the only audio you heard was from stream 1, which was my voice. But now I put everything back on stream 1. So you should hear everything. Just a little tech issue, another glitch. I love to do the live show. I do the live show so that you'll be able to call. You'll be able to join me. Most hosts, I think, do not. Some do live, but others don't. And maybe the ones that do have more support, so they're less likely to have these tech issues. I do apologize. It is not good. I recognize that. But what's most important to me in the end is to have a good recording so that those who aren't watching live will be able to get good audio, good visual. So I did stop it and restart. And I believe right now it is working. I did hear the theme music when we started the program. Let's get right to it. Less sort of, back chat or what have you. You can always call me. I'd love to talk to you today, 240-242-5646. We'll probably go till about 1:45. Try to keep the show at least an hour, solid hour. Killing continues in Gaza by Israel. Now you see a death toll of 40,476. That's official. We are quite confident. By all observations, the number's probably much higher than that. Could be north of 100,000. Credible sources from the UK, either Lancet or the BBC, have posited that we could be looking at over 200,000, 10%, close to 10% of the little strip of land there could have been eradicated by Israel with the support of the U.S. government, with the support specifically of the Biden-Harris administration, which continues to send 1-ton and 500-pound bombs to Israel as fast as Israel can use those bombs to kill Gazans, to massacre Palestinians, to eradicate them. We are supplying them. Biden, Harris are complicit. They are making our nation a genocidal state, like Israel. And if you're going to vote for them because you think they're the lesser of two evils, or you don't think this is that serious, or we can't stop AIPAC, I don't know what to say. Sometimes you need to do what's right. And it isn't right to vote for people who are backing to the hilt a genocide. 41 deaths in the previous 24 hours. This is the most dangerous place on the planet right now. This is the most violent place on earth, is Gaza. I think it's important. Again, I really want to continue to stress, to highlight the fact that these deaths can very directly be laid at the feet of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. If you believe that Kamala Harris will be better, that she has empathy, I'd like to know why. What has she done? I understand you give her a chance. She needs a chance. She can't buck Biden. Why can't she? Who the hell says she can't? Why can't she say, no, this is wrong? Here's what she could have said. If Kamala Harris really cared about the people of Palestine, if she really wanted to stop the genocide, if she really was planning to say no to Israel, here's what she could have said in her speech at the DNC. I have great respect for President Biden. He's done many, many wonderful things. In one area, we have a profound disagreement. I simply cannot agree that we should be supplying Israel with weapons to kill Gazans. They are using American weaponry to kill the people of Gaza, to wipe it off the map. I believe that is an area where the president has been wrong, and I will not do that if you elect me. She could easily have said that. It would have been fine for her to say that. She would have immediately been attacked by the Israel-affiliated media. She would have been, subject to all manner of criticism, but she could have said it. I have this quaint notion that leaders should lead. Apparently, though, most people don't believe that. To recognize just right, because our leadership, our president, our vice president, they're not leading, or if they are, they're leading in a horrible, awful, murderous way. My sense is they're being led by Bibi Netanyahu. They're being led by AIPAC. They're being led by the pro-Israel lobby. And I shouldn't even call it pro-Israel, because it's bad for Israel, the Zionist lobby. I want my leaders to lead, and to lead us in the right direction, to do the right things, not to kill, not to wipe a group of people off the planet. I cannot support them. I cannot support Harris. I cannot support Tim Walz. There are some who believe that, and I did call this program, by the way, the title was more DNC lowlights, right? So we'll play from rather porcine governor, or very porcine governor. We'll also hear from Vice President Harris, the nominee. But for those of you who believe, and I've seen this online, I've seen people comment, well, it's not really Harris's fault. It's not really Biden's fault. They can't do anything about it. It's Israel that's doing the killing. Or I even saw a post that attributed the 40K plus deaths to Hamas, which really is the big lie, right? If I keep saying something that's so ridiculous, people will believe it. The bombs are being dropped by Israel. The missiles are being launched by Israel. October 7th was a crime. And it's not even absolutely clear under international law it was a crime. Because the UN does sanction what they call acts of liberation by oppressed groups. There's no question that Gaza is being occupied by and oppressed by Israel. They are a population under occupation and under siege even, because Israel wouldn't even let in supplies. And under international law, such a population is entitled to retaliate against its oppressors. An argument, I think a non-frivolous argument can be made that that's exactly what October 7 was. But crime or not, the proper response is to address those who committed it, not the 2.5 innocents, those being persecuted and oppressed by Israel in Gaza and in the West Bank. Some of you believe, I don't know, I shouldn't say you. Some believe, some argue, anyway, whether they believe it or not, I don't know. Some argue that the U.S. really can't do much, that Biden and Harris really can't stop the killing. Here's the Israeli ambassador responding. I believe his name is Amit Herzog. Here he is responding to that nonsense on Face the Nation Sunday.
I know that the Qatari prime minister is headed to Iran tomorrow with a message not to escalate. Do you believe that you can avoid a direct attack by Iran on Israel?
I believe so. I think the Iranians are contemplating an attack on Israel, but decided for now to put it on hold. And I think the main reason for that was deterrent messages from Israel and the US, and a very strong US posture in the region, which tells you that you can deter them.
So really interesting. The reason, according to Herzog, that Hezbollah through Iran, or Iran through its proxy Hezbollah, is not launching strikes against Israel because of its crimes in Gaza, is because of that very strong presence of the United States military, that we are in fact deterring. Our military, our presence in the region is, Herzog is saying, and I think correctly, I have no reason to doubt it, and it makes perfect sense, Iran's deterred. They're afraid. They don't want a war with the United States. They know that any escalation with Israel could well lead the United States to provide support for bombing raids on Tehran. Or worse, maybe even some kind of military strike of some sort that goes beyond simply an airstrike, but even includes on-the-ground attack, right? That's not beyond what the United States has done. We've seen this over and over where the United States sends its military, we send our troops in, where Biden and Harris might send the troops in. So what Herzog says is that the U.S. presence in the region, let me get that whole slide, very strong U.S., I didn't get the whole thing on there, that you can deter attacks. You can deter, you can prevent war. You can prevent outright war, says the United States, Biden, Harris, can prevent outright war with a very strong U.S. posture. The problem is we haven't used that strong posture to prevent Israel. We've deterred Iran. We've said to Israel, you can do whatever you want. You have complete freedom when it comes to attacking the Palestine, when it comes to occupying the West Bank, when it comes to bombing Gaza, go for it. And we got your back, Israel. We got your back, Bibi. We're not going to let Iran or anyone else do anything to go after you for it. We'll protect you in the UN. We won't arrest you if you come to the United States to make political speeches. We'll give you a standing O. That's what the U.S. is telling. That's what Biden-Harris is telling Bibi. I can't vote for that. I don't know how you can. If you want to, tell me how. I'd love to know. If you believe that there's something right and just and moral in voting for that, please explain it to me. All right, here is Governor J.B. Pritzker speaking at the DNC. And look, I want to be honest. I had no idea who J.B. Pritzker was. I knew he was the governor of Illinois. I shouldn't say that. I had no idea this man was J.B. Pritzker. I would have Chris Christie. Like, did he dye his hair dark? I wouldn't know. I have no idea. But now I know. It's the billionaire governor of Illinois. And he let us know he's a billionaire. And apparently being a billionaire is a big selling point for the Democratic Party. Should it be?
We should trust him on the economy.
Donald Trump says we should trust him on the economy, is how Pritzker leads into this.
We should trust him on the economy because he claims to be very rich. But take it from an actual billionaire. Trump is rich in only one thing: stupidity. Now, I meet with business leaders all the time, and there's one universal thing they all need: people. They need more workers to fill all the jobs they have. But the anti-freedom, anti-family policies of MAGA Republicans are driving workers away.
All right, there's so much offensive in that speech. There's so much to pick apart. First of all, why is there gloating among the crowd that this scion of a billionaire family Not somebody who made it himself, not somebody who had some great idea, like whatever you think of Elon Musk. You'd even say, well, Musk didn't even come up with the electric car. It was some other guys. Yeah, but he bought it when the company was worthless, and he managed it to success, managed it to what it is. Tesla. Pritzker just inherited it. His parents died when he was very young. The Hyatt hotel chain was incredibly profitable. How is he some expert on the economy? And his claim, oh, freedom is what workers need. No, we know what workers need. Workers need protection. They need protection from offshorers. That's why the tariffs idea that Trump keeps pushing is actually a really good one. Because what corporate managers do is they threaten workers with loss of jobs. We can make that widget in Sri Lanka for 1/10 of what we pay the workers, 1/10 of what we pay you. If you try to get that raise, if you want better health care, guess what? You have nothing at all. That's what American management is doing right now to workers all over the country, leveraging the threat of moving businesses overseas to keep wages relatively low or low. Now, it's not as bad as it was because Trump did impose some tariffs and Biden has kept some tariffs. But the threat of offshoring is real, very, very real. There are many other ways that businesses threaten workers. The fact of the Obamacare, right, is a terrible way that healthcare is used to empower management. If you don't do what we tell you, I know it seems a little bit sketchy. It seems like maybe it's illegal. You don't like it. If you don't do what we tell you to do, you lose your job and therefore you lose your health care. Now your daughter's got that disease. She's relying on the insulin. She's relying on that special medication she gets. If you lose your job, pretty soon you're going to have to pay for that out of pocket. Can you afford that? That's what managers are telling employees all the time. Hey, you want a raise? You want a promotion? Have sex with me. That's what managers are telling employees all the time. That's why what freedom is not what helps, as he calls it, is not what helps workers. That speechifier, J.B. Pritzker, the billionaire, that's not what helps workers. What helps workers is not, as he calls it, the freedom of the corporation, the management to do what it wants. It's unions. It's an activist government that reins in overly powerful trusts with strong antitrust laws. We can see it even with regard to Hyatt itself. Here, this is from the Long Beach Post last year. Hyatt workers, employees, J.B. Pritzker's employees, they got a raise. They got a $4 an hour raise. How did they get it? It wasn't the generosity of J.B. Pritzker. It was the threat of a strike. It was aggressive, union-led negotiating. That's how we can make things better for workers. But there's no union organizer who was speaking at that point. It was a corporate bigwig, a big shot. You did hear, to be fair to the Democrats, they did give a speech presence to Sean Fain, the UAW president. But whatever he said was vetted in advance. And Fain kind of threw his fellow workers under the bus. Transportation workers, for example, were denied the right to strike by the Biden-Harris administration, despite the fact that these are the great champions of labor. Well, they're not such great champions because they said, no, you can't strike. I'm not going to let you strike. And therefore, you're not going to get the benefits that you're not going to get the benefits you might have. So I'm again totally at a loss why people think the Democratic Party and Biden and Harris in particular, will be leaders, will take us in a better direction. You know, I always say my litmus test is you're going to make things better. No reason for me to believe Biden and Harris are going to make things better for poor, struggling, and working people. I think they're going to make things better for this guy.
Dangerous. Democrats are for lower taxes and higher wages, less inflation and more business growth. We just think it's wrong to craft those policies for Elon Musk and not for everyday working people.
All right, again, the tax cuts that he's referring to, yes, Harris has talked about cutting taxes for workers. But what would be much better than cutting, I mean, of course they're going to want, everyone wants a tax cut, I suppose. But the way to improve America, to make things better, is to tax people like J.B. Pritzker at much, much, much higher rates. And to use the revenues to guarantee everyone health care at the point of delivery free. Also help create better jobs. Medicare for all not mentioned in the entire DNC, that may be by Bernie, who spoke before Pritzker. So any wind that the progressives might have had at their sails as a result of Bernie's speech was lost when this guy Pritzker spoke. Just some real quick facts about this poster child for today's Democratic Party. Born in beautiful, affluent Palo Alto, California, home of Stanford University. I understand he actually was raised in Atherton, which is about the richest town in America. Now, look, I have no look, one of our greatest presidents was clearly privileged. He was to the manner born, FDR. But Pritzker's no FDR. I mean, it boggles the mind. I mean, he's championing himself as a billionaire. Pritzkers have consistently been near the top of the Forbes America's Richest Families list since 1982, when Pritzker was 17. At the age of 17, his family was among the richest in America. His father died when JB was 7. His mother died when JB was 17. There's simply no reason to think, and he gave us no reason to think he's going to champion the kind of policies that will make life better for poor, struggling, and working people. And it's an embarrassment for the Democrats. Start gloating about how he's the real billionaire. All right, that's one of the lowlights I wanted to highlight. But let's get to the standard bearer. I saw this. Let me before we play Kamala. This was posted in one of my Facebook real friend, not a Facebook friend who happens to also be a real friend. And by the way, if you're watching, please call in 240-242-5646. Where to hide if a nuke goes off in your area? Hide at the polling place where you voted third party because you refused to vote for the lesser of two evils. So the goal there is to shame anyone who, like me, is not going to vote for Kamala Harris, will not vote for the duopoly candidate and the one of the two duopoly candidates. And the argument is, hey, Trump could start a nuclear war. You're going to vote for nuclear war if you vote against, if you don't vote for Harris. I have zero reason to believe. I don't think anyone can legitimately argue that the risk of a full-blown nuclear war is less if Harris is president than if Trump is. I think the two places of nuclear war right now that we look at are most likely to erupt are first and foremost in Ukraine, Russia, in that theater of war, and secondly, and quite possibly, in the Middle East. So in the Middle East, both parties are full supporters of Israel. Harris has made it absolutely clear that no matter what, Israel's getting its weapons. Iran may or may not have some nuclear capabilities. They're certainly doing their best to develop them. Harris has not said she's going to support any kind of a deal with Iran. She threatened Iran. Anything they do, we're going to retaliate as a stop to AIPAC. But okay, Trump is arguably even worse. So yeah, maybe a nuclear war that's triggered by Quran is slightly more likely if Trump is president than if Harris is, but it's certainly not beyond belief or doesn't strain credulity to believe that it could happen with Harris as president. What about the other place where we're involved in a proxy war? I don't really want to call it a proxy war in Gaza. It's just proxy killing, proxy genocide by proxy. But Ukraine, yes, Ukraine's our proxy state fighting endless war with Russia. Is Harris going to tamp down the chance of a nuclear holocaust starting in Eastern Europe? Well, let's find out.
5 days before Russia attacked Ukraine, I met with President Zelensky to warn him about Russia's plan to invade. I helped mobilize a global response, over 50 countries, to defend against Putin's aggression.
All right, if that's true, I'm a little skeptical, but okay, if it's true, why didn't you mobilize for peace? Why did you sabotage peace talks? What your response did is it just amped up a very volatile situation and led to this massive trench warfare that we're seeing right now, continuing unabated well over 2 years after the war began. Why didn't you try to prevent the war, Ms. Harris, Vice President Harris? Why did you, instead of preventing it, amp it up? And why did you and Joe Biden dispatch Boris Johnson to Kiev to tell Zelensky, no peace with Russia? How's that all working for you, by the way? Let me play a little more for you.
And as president, I will stand strong with Ukraine and our NATO allies.
All right, so NATO's the reason, we're there. Terrible mistake, a reason for the war in the first place, or expansion of NATO. But so basically what you're saying is, yeah, I pushed this, I'm for it, I helped blow it up. And it's been a complete disaster. There's no way you can look at this. I mean, this is a foreign policy success. It's kind of like when Hillary gloated, we came, we saw, he died, right? When she was talking about, and by the way, there's a lot of similarities, right, between Kamala and Hillary. When Hillary was bragging about getting a scalp there of Gaddafi, right? We came, we saw, he died. So Harris, I mobilized this response. And the response has led to right now hundreds of thousands of dead, well over 500,000, maybe over 1 million casualties, 20+% of Ukraine occupied by Russia, and now missile launches. Major strikes. You can see the building that was just destroyed there. Wow. That's something you're proud of? If you're going to vote, let me say it this way. If you're voting, and I don't think you shouldn't, because you want to avoid a nuclear holocaust, I think the only choice you have at this point is Jill Stein. I don't think there's any question. There's zero reason to believe Kamala Harris isn't going to involve us in that she's somehow going to be less likely to involve us in a nuclear war than Trump would. I mean, Trump, look, whatever you say about Trump, it's fair to say, as he says, or as RFK Jr. says, he was less, at least in rhetoric. He wasn't a peacemaker by any means, but at least with regard to rhetoric, he did. And in some actions, remember, he did hold up some arms going to Ukraine. It was the right decision. I'm not sure
told me that he wanted it.
that it's not less likely. I would say it is less likely we would have a nuclear war with Russia if Trump were president than if Harris were president.
Also told me that he wanted to end the grip of the neocons on U.S. foreign policy. He said he didn't want any more $200 billion wars in Ukraine, that we could use that money back here in the United States.
He doesn't want a war with Ukraine. Compare that with what Harris said. Oh, we'll back Ukraine to the hilt, which is more likely to lead to war. Which policy is going to be more devastating, more harmful, and more likely to lead to nuclear war? And you would say, well, we need to protect Ukraine. Our protection, the Biden-Harris policy of protecting Ukraine has been an absolute unmitigated disaster for the people of Ukraine. It's done wonders for Lockheed Martin stock, Raytheon. Remember, we used to be, as Democrats used to be critical. Hey, look at, Cheney, Dick Cheney, Halliburton CEO, right? I think he was, or one of the top people at Halliburton anyway. That's a huge conflict of interest. We shouldn't be promoting the interests of Halliburton. When he's vice president, he'll be promoting the interests of Halliburton. How are we not seeing the exact same pro-war, pro-imperialism policies from Kamala Harris? Answer is we are. We're seeing the same ones. There's no difference. Okay, by the way, it is Halitics. Do click like, do click subscribe. I'm going to give you that little subscribe now animation I have here. And I also love to talk to you. 240-242-5646. 240-242-5646. Let's get back to the DNC. I know it was last week, but there's a lot of hope, right? A lot of people saying, give her a chance. Maybe she'll be better than you think. Well, I just go by what people tell me. And what she's telling me doesn't give me any reason, any cause for optimism. If you disagree, why?
Or that a terrorist organization called Hamas caused on October 7, including unspeakable sexual violence and the massacre of young people at a music festival.
All right, I wanted to play that clip, that little segment, because, of course, it's true that young people were massacred. But it's a lie for her to say committed unspeakable acts of sexual violence. It's simply unproven. It's a statement that has not stood up to scrutiny. And when she says that, she's justifying the Biden-Harris pro-genocide policy. So if you listen to, oh, I feel so bad for the people of Palestine, right? Oh, we've got to stop the violence there. Her statement, that specific statement, they committed the Hamas, the terrorist organization called Hamas, as she put it. When she says that, what she's doing is what Harris is doing is she's justifying the genocide. She's saying, yeah, we're going to continue it. I have no reason to stop it. That's, that, or there's reason for it, is what she's doing now. She might say, I'm not, you can always hope, but that kind of rhetoric is designed to get people's blood boiling so that they will be okay with the genocide. That some will say, oh, they brought it on themselves, they deserve it, or they need to get rid of Hamas. Of course, even if there were widespread rapes, sexualized violence by Hamas on October 7, it would not mean it's okay for Israel to commit genocide. It wouldn't justify it in the least. But hearing about sexual crimes, sex crimes, does cause people to see red in a way that mere murder doesn't. So, was it justified, what Harris said, that they committed unspeakable sex crimes? A group called Safe Heart, this has treated 900 survivors of the attack on October 7. 10 of them said they either heard or saw sexual violence. None has reported that they were assaulted themselves. I didn't give you the entire, there's a lot in this article. It's very, very strong. It's from the Times of London. Not one individual claims to have been sexually assaulted on October 7. Not one. None of the sex clinics that treat, or the clinics that treat victims of sexual assault, reported any victims of October 7 coming in. Not everyone was killed by Hamas. Plenty were not. Saw that, 900 survivors. Not one of them said they were. Now, if there was widespread sexual violence, don't you think at least one of those 900 would have said, yes, I personally was sexually assaulted? The article continues, there's not one corpse where forensic evidence concludes there was sexualized violence. A psychologist says, I don't think there were a lot of sexual assaults. There was a lot of murder. That's what happened. And yet Harris repeats the canard that Sheryl Sandberg told her, that there was all this, screams without words or something? That there was all this sexual... you know what? Why? Why is that done? Why repeat that canard? Which almost certainly was put in there by AIPAC. Well, before we get to the why, let's just look at one other thing that Israel did. Besides the constant and AIPAC, because we saw the speech by Harris was almost certainly vetted by AIPAC. Before we get into the why, or one of the reasons why is because, they always say the best defense is a good offense. We know Israel has been sexually assaulting its victims, men and women, using broomsticks and other, objects to insert into the rectums of their victims, the people they keep in concentration camps. We know that a number of Palestinian women have said they were sexually assaulted by Israelis while in custody or not, and the Israeli government does nothing. The Israeli government has completely refused to look into the allegations by Palestinian women, to believe Palestinian women, even though they have greatly increased the number of detentions, and the allegations of sexual assault have likewise risen, and they've been documented too. So Israel has even said, oh, we're not going to look into what they say we did, because they're just saying it to distract from their own crimes. But in fact, what is really going on here is Israel is using the allegations of sexual assault on October 7 to justify the atrocities that it commits and is intending to commit. The allegations of sexualized violence by Hamas, the allegations that Israel is making, that Kamala Harris made without any evidentiary support, those allegations are made to justify Israeli atrocities against Palestinians. When Kamala Harris goes on the floor of the DNC and talks about Hamas sexualizing violence on October 7th, what she is doing is justifying Israel's atrocities. I can't vote for somebody who's justifying genocide. I won't do that. If you plan to do it, let me know. Why? I'd love to hear your reasons. One of the great disappointments that I have, and maybe I shouldn't be so disappointed, maybe I shouldn't be surprised, is that there are so few uncompromising voices out there. I like to think I'm one of them, one of the very few. One of the I really need to do a better job with the tech, because if there's a tech problem, it distracts from my message. And I think this is an important message, and it's not getting out there. And there are very few people who present it. I always want to believe, I've wanted to believe for a long time, and to a degree, they've kind of vindicated that belief, that democracy now is a truth teller. I thought it was very interesting that Amy Goodman had on this African-American, I believe she's from a professor from, I believe, a university in Chicago, to talk about Kamala Harris. And I was pretty, by and large, well, let me say it this way, much of what the historian Ransby said, I appreciated. She did not rely on Harris's mixed race heritage as South Asian and Black as some huge milestone, and that we need to all get behind her, and if people criticize her, it's because they're racist. She didn't say that. She didn't say this is some great achievement that a Black woman could get where she got, or a Black and brown, mixed race Black and brown woman could get where she got. Just proves how wonderful and great she is. She didn't say that. And I really appreciate that. Here's what Barbara Ransby does say about Harris's comments at the DNC regarding the Palestinian oppression.
Well, I was glad to hear her mention the suffering of the Palestinian people, but of course it didn't ring true. It rang a little bit hollow, because the Biden administration could stop much of that suffering, by not sending 2,000-pound bombs and $3 billion a year to the Israeli government. So, it would have been backed up by action. If it would have been backed up by allowing a Palestinian speaker to speak in their own terms, that part would have resonated. But of course, talking about Israel's right to defense is disguised as the fact that this is an offensive war. Offensive on every level that word means something, right? And the United States is facilitating it. And the 40,000 Palestinian lives. I mean, you all absorb these numbers every day in your reports, but it was not enough. It was the wrong message. And a throwaway line about Palestinian suffering does not get it.
Yeah, so that's a lot of really powerful stuff there, right? She says, throwaway line doesn't do it. She says it's not defensive, it's offensive, it's a distraction. Very powerful stuff by Ransby. And you think that by saying that, she'd be laying the groundwork for, hey, we've got to move in a different direction. We've got to go to a third party. You can't support this genocidal, this genocider. You can't do it. You think she'd say that. You think that maybe Amy Goodman would push her to say that. But listen to what she actually does say.
Oh, I think the thing that Mo Mitchell said that's very important is, one, the importance of defeating fascism.
So she goes there, right? We got to defeat fascism. It's, as bad as what Harris said, doesn't do it. Not what she said, doesn't do it when she talks about backing Israel to the hilt, just showing a little compassion, shedding some crocodile tears. That doesn't do it. But hey, we've got to stop fascism. So that's like the big boogeyman, right? You got to stop Hitler. We got to stop fascism.
Right, and that's important not only because there are an array of issues that there's a great divergence between the Democrats and Republicans on, but also in order to have the oxygen, in order to continue the protests in solidarity with Palestine.
So the best she's saying is, well, we're not going to stop the policy. We're going to continue to perpetuate genocide, but at least people can protest. That's her defense, right? Of voting for Harris. Well, people will still be able to protest. I don't think they will. If you've seen, there's the strong effort among many Democrats to outlaw BDS. The Democratic Party has elements who are supporting the college professors, the college presidents rather, who are locking up students. UCLA sends in some goons, some Israeli goons, pro-Israel goons, to beat up protesters. I don't know why she's so confident that the Harris administration, if there is one, is going to defend free speech rights.
If we have an authoritarian regime in power, we're going to have very much difficulty doing that. And the young people who've been so heroic on college campuses around the country with encampments and so forth, young people also like Mo, who I met at a political conference not long ago, would meet with, I'm afraid, military and live ammunition as opposed to rubber bullets.
So it's, what she said, you'll get shot at with real guns rather than rubber guns right now. It'll be even worse. That's the only argument they have. It could be even worse. I don't think there's much that's worse than genocide, if there's anything. But that's the only argument she had. And that's what's presented on Democracy Now! Now, the other problem with this is it's such a false choice. It isn't either you vote for Harris or you vote for Trump. There are alternatives, certainly the Green Party. And finally, stopping Trump by electing Harris doesn't stop fascism in any way. There are many fascistic elements to the Biden-Harris administration. You saw a billionaire, the marriage between corporatism, and the state in a J.B. Pritzker. He's speaking for the Democratic Party. He's touting his solutions for labor problems. The billionaire, the exploiter of labor, is the one who's going to somehow solve labor problems? Really? But that's the Democratic Party solution. The Democratic Party is overseen. Barack Obama sold all this military hardware to police forces. That's fascism. Democratic states, including New York, are using the Israeli paramilitary operations to train their police. That's fascism. The state of California, Democratic, all three branches, strong Democratic, trifecta, they're rousting out homeless people. What are they, putting them in the desert somewhere? That's fascism. You don't have to wait for Trump to have fascism. We've got it right now. So Ransby's arguments are incredibly disingenuous. And again, what's also very sad is you have a pretty big platform on Democracy Now! There's a lot of people who watch that program. There are a lot of people who listen to it. You have an opportunity to say, no, we can't support. We've got to move on. This just isn't working anymore. But she doesn't do it. Maybe someone got to her too. I don't know. All right, finally, before I mean, some of the comments by Shade are quite interesting. Yeah, won't be out of the Dem Big Tent is as small as the Green parties. I'll just make one point. There's some digs in there, like I know I had a tech issue, so he's like, oh, I can see why it's a small audience, but it's a nice word. Yeah, I do this because this is what matters to me. This is what I care about. I want things to be a little bit better, and they keep getting worse. The Democratic Party ain't a big tent. Palestinian voices were not inside that tent, or if they were completely silenced. The uncommitted movement was not in that tent, or if they weren't heard. So the idea that somehow the Democratic Party is a big tent is just untrue. Working people, blue-collar people weren't welcome in that tent. The Democrat Party is a party of the elites. And if you see yourself represented in that party, I'd love to know why. What have they done for you? What policies are they pursuing aggressively that you believe shows that they care about poor, struggling working people? Because I sure as heck haven't seen any of them. No $15 minimum wage. The strikers didn't get to strike. The climate catastrophe is made worse every day, which falls hardest on poor, struggling working people. All right, I'm going to finish. I'm going to end it here. I hope there was plenty more clips I could have played. Well, yeah, I mean, Kulinski, what are you going to say? He's just all in. He's just another Democratic shill. No point in playing that. It's what it is. We're in a terrible place, and Kamala Harris, like Donald Trump, will make things worse. And in some ways, in some areas, she's likely to make things worse than Trump would make them. You want to vote for that? Go ahead. If you don't. But if you disagree with me, this is what I ask you to do. Don't dig, don't insult, don't make personal arguments. Explain why I'm wrong. Provide specifics, dates, times, facts. This is what the Democratic Party is doing to stop the genocide. This is why you're wrong when you say the Democratic Party doesn't support working people. List them. Identify it. That's going to do it. I'll be back tomorrow.